ドクター、近くでお散歩しようと思ってるんだけど、ご一緒しない？
Hello, this is Meteorite, and I will be narrating this video. You are probably aware that there is an older operator guide for Dorothy, but the script for this video had some revisions. Also, the whole video style is updated. So, let's begin. Dorothy is a 6-star operator that specializes in deploying traps to nuke down enemies anywhere in the map and apply certain status effects. She falls into the Trapmaster specialist archetype. Trapmaster's performance is very similar to marksman snipers outside of their skills. Both have fast attack speed and relatively low damage per hit. However, Trapmasters do not prioritize attacking aerial enemies. While inferior to the solo performance of summoners, Trapmaster's biggest advantage over summoners is the fact that traps do not use a deployment slot, meaning they can provide their global support without having to worry about eating up deployment slots for other operators. Her first talent, Resonator, immediately provides Dorothy up to 10 resonators and allows her to hold up to a maximum of 10 at a time. Resonators are her traps. The first enemy to step on a resonator will trigger it. On deployment, immediately set 2 resonators within attack range. Her second talent, Dreamer, provides Dorothy a stacking attack buff every time a resonator is triggered. Each stack gives 2% attack and can stack up to a maximum of 10 to 12 layers. Buff resets on death or if Dorothy is retreated. Dorothy gains a visual effect to signify that max stacks have been achieved. Her first skill, Dangerous Entity Removal, causes the resonator to deal high amounts of physical damage and inflict defense reduction for 5 seconds to the enemy that triggered it. Whenever the skill activates, Dorothy gains 1 resonator. Her second skill, Quicksand Generation, causes the resonator to deal high amounts of AoE physical damage and binds the affected targets for a short duration. If there is only one target, bind duration is extended. Whenever the skill activates, Dorothy gains 1 resonator. Her third skill, High-Speed Resonating Troubleshooter, causes the resonator to deal high amounts of AoE arts damage and slows the affected targets for a short duration. After 2 seconds, nearby resonators are automatically triggered. Whenever the skill activates, Dorothy gains 1 resonator. All numbers are assuming Dorothy is at her peak operator stats. The second value beside each value represents the stats when her second talent is at maximum stacks. Let's break down her first skill, Dangerous Entity Removal. Your best skill option if you want to maximize Dorothy's own basic attack DPS and provide global defense reduction. While S1 provides the highest damage nuke out of all Dorothy's skills, its biggest weakness is that it only affects 1 target at a time. I mentioned this early to serve as a warning for anyone who is thinking of investing in Dorothy's S1. Dorothy's peak basic attack DPS can almost reach 1000, which is pretty decent. For reference, Exusii without module can peak up to 886 DPS on her basic attacks. Let's assume that you are using Dorothy as a lane holder and have her continuously deploy resonators on cooldown. She will peak at an average DPS of 1752. Is 1752 average DPS good? A reference we can use is Schwartz's S1 with module. It peaks at 1347 average DPS. Not to mention, Schwartz herself also inflicts a defense reduction debuff to her targets, albeit weaker since it only reduces by 20%. So on top of having a good average DPS for a lane holding skill, Dorothy also fixes the biggest problem of a marksman herself, which is fighting medium to high armored enemies, thanks to her built-in defense reduction on S1. While a huge majority of marksman snipers would already stop dealing damage against 1000 armor, Trapmasters do have a couple of other advantages. Setting up traps in advance means that, in theory, Dorothy's DPS can be much higher. So what I'm trying to say is, while average DPS is useful information, It can be slightly misleading because Trapmasters excel in preparing for enemy waves in advance. On top of being a good lane holder with S1, it still has the ability to provide a global defense reduction, meaning she can somewhat replicate the role of Shamer's S2. Just don't expect the exact same convenience and performance since Shamer's doll doesn't need to be stepped on by the target. It is also more potent as it peaks at 50% defense reduction at Mastery Rank 3. For example, Mountain using S2 is known for solo lane holding in a remote position. His S2 has low damage per hit, making fights against high armor a struggle. Dorothy's S1 having global range means that she can assist Mountain against high armor anytime.
Actually, you can't set traps on occupied tiles. If you don't kill a beefy target in 5 seconds, then Dorothy's DPS plummets.
I'm assuming that Miss Lapland is talking about a beefy target that is blocked by your melee operator. She is correct. If it would take more than 5 seconds to kill the target, Dorothy's DPS would go down as she cannot set another trap below the target. So here's a sneak peek to one of Dorothy's synergy. One of Trapmaster's biggest weaknesses is the inability to set a trap on occupied tiles. This prevents them from repeatedly trapping enemies on the same tile. Luckily, this can be fixed by displacing enemies. There are 3 methods to do this. Pushing them away, mainly with push strokers. Pulling them back, mainly with hookmasters. Levitating the target, currently exclusive to Irene. Pushing the target away is going to be the best option out of the 3. Especially considering the fact that push strokers have decent range with their strongest pushing skills. Their long range allows push strokers to push away enemies even before the enemies get blocked. Therefore, the tiles where resonators are triggered can be utilized again. If the target is already blocked, then they can push them away so traps can be laid down again. Pulling the target back is the most unreliable option, considering blocked enemies cannot be pulled anymore, and there is no hookmaster that has the ability to pull enemies with huge force. Another issue is their tile positioning. Finally, levitating the target. Levitating an enemy changes them into an aerial unit. Even if an enemy is already occupying a tile, if they get converted into an aerial unit, this allows Trapmasters in general to slide in a trap under them. Since Irene is known for piercing through enemy armor, the synergy with Dorothy's S1 isn't that strong as the trap's defense reduction becomes useless. But here's a clip showing that levitating the target does allow sliding in another trap. There is also a future limited 6-star fighter that can levitate enemies, but doesn't have their own defense ignore or enemy defense reduction. This makes them synergize with Dorothy a little better than Irene. Another is a future 5-star core caster that can be bought from the shop. They are a core caster that features anti-air capabilities, including a skill that levitates enemies. These mentioned displacement methods do not help Dorothy exclusively. It applies to all Trapmasters in general. Let's break down her second skill, Quicksand Generation. Your best skill option if you want to stall groups of enemies or stall a single high-threat enemy. This skill is inferior to S3 when it comes to AoE range and crowd control uptime against multiple enemies. However, things change when there is only one target. The bind duration of S2 almost doubles against one target, up to a 6-second bind. With resonators having a cooldown of 5 seconds, you can stall a single enemy for a very long time. The only hindrance is that you cannot place a trap on an occupied tile. So by displacing this high-threat enemy, it is possible for S2 to stall an enemy indefinitely, as long as Dorothy has resonators. One example would be stalling high-threat possessed leaders, as these things would die by themselves eventually. The effective range of S2 doesn't show in-game. The reason for this is most likely due to the fact that the range is a circle. One strong synergy with S2 is by pairing Dorothy with Executors. This synergy is especially effective against Crown Slayer or Black Knight, who blinks away after getting blocked. Currently, Phantom is the strongest executor. There will be 2 future limited 6-star executors that can dish out tons of damage within the bind duration of Dorothy's S2. Overall, Dorothy's S2 is arguably the strongest crowd control available for a single target. Let's break down her third skill, High-Speed Resonating Troubleshooter. Dorothy's bread and butter. Your best skill option if you need AoE Arts Nuke with bonus crowd control in an effective global range. Also allows Dorothy to solo certain stages. With a 350% peak modifier, Dorothy would be able to provide decent AoE Arts Nukes anywhere in the map. Unlike her other skills, it has a much bigger AoE and includes a new mechanic where a triggered resonator can forcefully detonate nearby resonators, allowing Dorothy to stall groups of enemies reliably. Its AoE range and being able to forcefully detonate nearby resonators is what really sets this skill apart from the other skills. Due to the delay on forced detonations, you can easily set another trap within the AoE of the other traps for another extra burst of damage and extend the crowd control uptime, which then gives you another set of extra time to set up another trap. If that was confusing, here's a clip. Reacting quickly to the explosions would basically allow you to do this. In most cases, Dorothy's S3 is used offensively and aggressively. Due to its relatively low SP cost, her traps can consistently damage enemies anywhere around the map as the stage progresses, which also allows her to solo certain stages.
When the sun fades out of sight, constellations come to life. The serotonin keeps us floating. We contemplate our lives. Though the numbers safe and sound, my hypotheses abound. I've got a theory, you're there with me, transcending data files. Take a picture, don't forget her, let it linger in your view. The formula for finding magic, 1 + 1 just me.
Dorothy's S1 can be used as a global defense reduction similar to Shamer's S2. Therefore, it synergizes well with operators that deal physical damage but has low damage per hit. Only problem is that Dorothy's S1 only affects one target, which is a problem if you are trying to use an AoE damage dealer. While Dorothy's S2 currently has the most powerful crowd control against a single target, being unable to set traps on occupied tiles means that no matter how much you delay the target, it will still move from tile to tile. Using displacement methods mentioned earlier could help with this problem. Dorothy's S3 is used in a very aggressive fashion, making it a continuous AoE Arts damage nuke all over the map throughout the stage. Having a permanent attack increase source would greatly help Dorothy improve her performance for this role, especially when factoring in the pure attack scale modifier of S3. Bard Skadi is a special mention due to her ability to provide a chunky attack increase buff with 100% uptime. Warfarin is also a good option if you are burning through Dorothy's resonator stacks like a madman. Warfarin's talent provides SP regeneration to Dorothy on top of her attack buff. Since S3 applies slow debuff, this automatically means it would not stack with other slow debuff sources. If you want to further slow down enemies, you will need to use something like Manticore's S1. Basically, it will stack with movement speed debuffs that specifies how much % movement speed is reduced. Let me teach you a lesson. Overall, Dorothy is a very solid Trapmaster. She won't be the meta DPS operator you'd be looking for, but she offers various status effects that can be crucial to certain strategies. Should you try to pull or build Dorothy if you get the chance? Yes and no. Yes, because Dorothy has unique various roles and is pretty fun to play. As mentioned earlier, she can solo certain stages. She is also capable of doing a duo Risk 18 run with Golden Glow on CC Fake Waves. There will also be a future game mode where Dorothy equipped with S3 will be a top pick, especially if you haven't memorized the stages yet. Another AK YouTuber has a great showcase of Dorothy in this game mode. Link will be in the pinned comment. Know if you're trying to be resource efficient and are trying your best to collect all meta operators. If Yostar doesn't change schedules again, the next new operator after Dorothy would be one of the strongest guard operator in the game. And this guard, along with Centurion Gaviel, forms one of the strongest duo lane holders in the game that is currently very popular in the CN server. For M3 priority, S3 is way ahead compared to her other skills. Don't bother with her other skills unless you want them for their niche. I mentioned Levitate as part of Trapmaster's synergy, but right now, even in the CN server, there's really not much good Levitate pair for Dorothy. And that's it for now. Like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content.